Hello and welcome to another episode of the Property Nomads podcast. And for the next 4 weeks, we're on a little bit of an adventure. We are exploring a Women in Business series. So we're going to be talking to 4 fantastic entrepreneuresses. I don't even know if that's a word, but I've just said it anyway. And finding out, how they have dealt with various things in their business lives. Not all of it's property related. Today's guest, although she is doing great things in property, does have a really intriguing background in architecture. For those out there that are architects are probably aware that is a very male dominated industry, and she said just off record that she's got some juicy stories to share, so that's going to be delightful to hear. And today's guest is Mary Osman from Elite Dwellings, and been doing property for a couple of years. We've known each other on and off for a little while, and as mentioned, with an architectural background, I'm sure the stories are going to flow. So Mary, thank you for joining us on this Women in Business series.
Thanks very much for having me, Rob. It's a pleasure, and thank you for doing Women's in Business series. I think it's going to be a cracker.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I suppose we should start at the beginning. Elite Dwellings are out and about around on social media, and you've got some great things happening. But before that, and I suppose before even architecture, that's my first question would be, what got you into architecture in the first place?
That's going back a bit, isn't it? No, so I was quite a creative growing up, and I just wanted to do something in the creative industry, and coming from a bit of a background of everybody being in going to academia and being in academia. Lots of us are doctors and lawyers and all the rest of it, and also being from an Asian background, they had expectations of me going into those kind of career paths, and I just loved creativity. So I wanted to do something in design myself, and I always thought to be into something, you have to be on the top of it. And I thought the top of the food chain must be architecture. So that's how I wanted to become an architect. And
correct me if I'm wrong, but that takes 7 years to get fully, get your degree, diploma, etc., and become fully qualified. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So it's actually a minimum of 7 years you can do it. So that's the quickest time you can become an architect in. So it's 3 years of undergraduate studies, and you do a year in industry, and you do 2 years of masters, and then you do another 2 years of kind of professional working, but studying for a year at the same time. So you basically, as similar to accountants, you need to kind of be accountable for a certain number of years of working as well. Whilst you're doing your final year of study to become a chartered architect. So yeah, it does take a minimum of 7 years. So if you meet any architects, just know that they're very committed people for all the right or wrong reasons.
Fair point. I think that's a good point, well made. And I imagine with that skill set that there are, it's a skill set you can always sort of improve upon, because I suppose, is it fair to say there's always different design techniques and ways of doing things? Is that forever evolving, have you found, in your experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's actually nice to be in an architecture industry is that you can always do something. So because you do so much study and you learn so much, you actually learn not only about architecture, but you learn about how to do product design, how to do interior design, how to do visualizations, renderings, create videos. You give an architect or an architecture student a video to create, and they'll whack it out in, Premiere Pro or some crazy program as well for you. So there's so much skill that you pick up along the way. That you have that can really help, and that's something that's really helped me in my business, and kind of me and my partner in my business as well. the fact that our skills are so transferable. We can do our marketing on social media platforms and stuff like that ourselves because we know how to do graphics, and we can very easily get into property as we have, because you get lots of transferable skills through it.
So is that how you decided to evolve into property, or was there another sort of pinch point where yourself and your partner just thought, oh, actually, we need to change our course here? Tell us a bit more about that process, how that worked.
Yeah, absolutely. So we didn't know that we wanted to get involved in property or anything like that. We were very busy being commercial architects and making the very rich, even richer, I should say. And it's very normal for architects to work from 9 till 9 p.m. or even 12 p.m. and things like that, just because we have this stupid level of commitment. And design becomes very important to us, and our clients become very important to us. And we were kind of just in this, almost in this rat race of architecture. We were, exhausting ourselves almost. So we quit our jobs and we went traveling for about a year, and then ended up living in Australia for 2 years after that. And when it was only about a week within traveling that we realized that there were lots of people around us who were working remotely whilst they were basically on holiday, but making money. And we thought, oh my God, we really need to do something like this. So very quickly, my mindset changed from, I've studied for 7 years and an architect, and I really need to progress myself, force a progression of myself into being an architect, and being a very successful architect, to actually there's different ways of living and there's different ways of making money and having a passive income rather than a very, very active income that we had. So there were just different things that I was interested in that I wanted to pursue. Like I love tea, so we'd look at, making green tea and things like that. So there's so many different things that I thought about having as a business. It was never actually, the penny didn't drop for quite a while until I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And kind of these different pop-ups came up on my phone about, do you want to go on property courses? After I'd obviously mentioned to the whole internet world that I was reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, that actually I was like, actually property makes sense because, I can use my skills that I have already to build something that will eventually become passive to me. So yeah, that's how property came about.
The seminal book that is Rich Dad Poor Dad. I've heard that mentioned so many times.
I know. I think it's a turning point for the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, isn't it?
100%. It gives a completely different perspective, of things, doesn't it? And you realise that you can, as you've pointed out quite rightly there, that you're dedicated to your clients, dedicated to your customers, 10, 12, 15 hours a day, making sure they're getting what they need, they want, helping them improve their wealth. And, you're sat there doing X, Y, Z, probably having a decent life. But, there is always that turning point, isn't there? And for yourself, that, seemed to be a mixture of that book and travelling as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad the penny did drop.
I'm just trying to think at that time, the minute that penny dropped, was it almost a relief reaction, or was it a case of, oh my God, I've just been doing architecture for X amount of years, I think I've gone down the wrong path? How did that feel at that time?
Yeah, so it was almost like a light bulb moment, actually, because when I was thinking, what can I do to become more kind of passive and have a business, etc. Everything was quite interesting, and there was loads of shiny pennies out there, like email marketing I tried out, and like the different stems that I tried out. I think at one point me and the other half tried out buying bitcoins. So you do go through lots of things, and when it came to property, it was a light bulb moment. It was like, we can combine all our skills and everything we know. We don't have to start from scratch. And it made complete sense to me. And it was actually quite liberating for me to understand that I can work for myself and I can do something for myself rather than, I do love my clients and stuff like that, but it's such a different feeling when you're working for yourself than you're working for somebody else.
That's completely understandable. There is a completely different sense in how you are with people, not you as an individual, of course, people in general, but the sort of the mindset difference is quite extraordinary. I would have, it's fair to say, just going on, Bitcoin, probably looking back at that now, just when it's gone north of $30,000, probably, it is what it is nowadays. But one of those
some
things.
Money in it. I didn't think that. Yeah.
Sorry to rub that in. Anyway.
I know. Do you have any?
I don't. I sort of got into the craze a few years ago, and then when it kind of spiked up and then spiked down again, it was sort of didn't think much of it. But I think although it's a whole different podcast in itself, I think given where the globe is socioeconomically, I could see the attraction to something like Bitcoin and cryptos. It's not something I do, but I could see the attraction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it is always important. Although my current strategy is property. It's always good not to put all your eggs in one basket, and kind of in due course, it's important for everyone to invest a small amounts in lots of different things. So I'm completely not averse to investing in other things at the moment. I think my kind of 70-30, so 70% of my concentration is in property.
Sounds like a very sensible allocation, to be perfectly honest with you, Mary. So good stuff on that. Moving forward, in terms of women in business, and I'll make this apology now, and I will also make this apology for the next 4 episodes as well. Because I guess some of this line of questioning is going to be probably maybe quite awkward for you, but certainly from my point of view, awkward asking it almost. But we're here to get perspectives, and there's a lot of issues around the world. I think that's an understatement. But in terms of sexism and misogyny and all this sort of stuff, we'll touch upon a few of those subjects. Going back to architecture, and for those that are not UK based or don't know too much about architectural practice, it is quite a male dominated industry, as a lot of property is. Not all property, but a lot of property is as well. At what point did you realise when you were doing architecture that were you surrounded by men all the time? Did that make you feel uncomfortable? Have you been on the end of any unfair comments just because of your sex?
Yeah, plenty. To be honest, right at the beginning, so when you're at university doing undergraduate, we had perhaps 40% female and 60% male. So it's more even at an undergraduate level. As soon as I hit my master's, and then so you go from undergraduate to working for a year, and then you do your postgraduate to your master's. As soon as I hit my master's, it went to 10% female and 90% male. And that was years ago, but now it's improved, but not by too much. Perhaps it might be 30% or something like that female. But the year that we were studying it just it plummeted, it drops, because it's just the kind of industry is, and the type of output that's expected of you, a lot of females don't kind of want to put themselves through that. So you get the drop quite early on. And then going into practice, I think every day kind of we get more and more females in practice, which is really good. But in architecture, in interior design, you get a lot more females, which is quite good. In architecture, you get a lot more males, especially at the higher end as well. At the lower end, the female, it's kind of developing and becoming a bit better. The female balance is, coming up. Perhaps there's about 30%. Not that the pay is 30% is similar at all. There's so many issues about the pay gap in architecture. And the construction industry, and between males and females. But yeah, so for personally coming into work, it's a male-dominated world. We had, even when I worked in bigger practices, we always had all our directors, who obviously kind of we look up to, are male directors. In every practice that I've worked in, in most practice I've worked in, I've probably had one female director to all other male directors. So the numbers are just, a lot of the time it's about kind of the industry learns through experience as well. And I'm going to be a bit not un-PC, but as some people might find it a bit difficult to listen. But I always said that on TV, unless we showed ethnic minority on TV, there's so many generations of underprivileged people who will look like at movies, at series, at TV and stuff like that, and all the blue collar people and everything like that working in their white collar people are not of ethnic minority. And I've always thought that was a problem. And no adverts, most movies, lots of TV programs don't have anyone of kind of not like a black or an Asian background. And I actually, I think, not showing anybody the way is half the problem. And so not having these kind of directors and things like that are above you, that are female, becomes more of a struggle to see yourself, to envisage yourself and envision yourself up there, and also not having a mentor who understands what you're going through. So I think that's quite a big thing in the industry. And historically, it's been the fact that there just isn't that much flexibility for females in the industry as well. There isn't that much understanding for females to take time off for children, to work flexible hours and things like that. So that becomes really difficult. So that's kind of the hard side of it. I'm sorry I kind of really went in, Rob, and spoke about those kind of perspectives of the industry.
It's important, Mary. It's important. It's the fact that you've done that is crucial. And actually, I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it. You also brought in race there. So for people that don't know you, right?
Yeah.
You're not white. You've got a different background. So what's your background?
So I'm of a Persian background. I was born in Afghanistan, and when I was young, I moved to the UK, and so I've been brought up in the UK and everything like that. So actually, I feel as a human being, I feel like I've actually, the little that we have, I actually feel quite privileged, because I know people who are in countries like that. So many of them are quite underprivileged. So actually, most of the time, I feel like king of the world. Which is
fair enough. That's good. Did you ever find then, dealing with obviously you're a woman, and also having ethnic minority background. Did you? I don't want to say that's like a double negative. I don't mean it like that. But did at the time of you doing, architectural practice and being at work, etc., and to an extent even in property, have you ever found that to be, looked upon as double negative? It's like, oh, you're a woman. Oh, you're not white. I mean, I know it sounds harsh, but have you ever experienced that before?
Luckily, no, I haven't. Which is really good, which is like really promising in, especially in architecture, you deal with, or if I haven't on site, they haven't really told me, but in architecture and, kind of knowing, professionals and engineers and stuff like that, they never, I've never even thought about myself in a different color or anything like that. I've had a great career experience. I've had a great university experience, and no one's ever judged me as anything other than a woman. So yeah, no, I think that's been very positive. So which I'm quite happy about. But and then in terms of the industry, so I've got lots of funny stories for you. So the construction industry is obviously full of kind of, it's male dominated. The architecture itself and interior design is getting better and better, which is really good. But as I kind of progressed in my career, I used to, so you start to kind of take hold of projects, you attend meetings, and you represent your practice, and you represent the projects as the architect on the project. And I kid you not, 90% of the time I used to walk into the first meeting and all heads used to look up at me. And I'm not just a female, I'm also only 5 foot tall. So I used to walk into a room and I would get, most men used to be 50 or above. So the site engineer, the structural engineer, the mechanical engineer and stuff like that used to be like 50 or over, and they'd look up and be like, so who is she coming in, and kind of sitting down and, where's the architect? And so I've so many times I've kind of had that first kind of envisaged meeting and being like, oh my God, they're just going to be like, who is she? And they'd kind of look for a prompt to be like, so who is she? So I'd have to introduce myself in the middle of this sea of men who are sitting around me and prove myself. So it's so you always have to go in there armored up rather than go in there very relaxed to think that, okay, I'm just going in and I'm going to kind of say my part and everything like that. So I've had to build a very, very strong shell and be quite armored up and show my level of knowledge, which at the beginning of your career is very difficult to have that level of knowledge because it comes through experience. So what I used to do, I used to just kind of immerse after every meeting. I used to not know everything in every meeting. Nor did lots of other people, but it was really important for me to prove that I knew it, because there were so many people judging me. And so I'd go away and I'd spend nights and nights and nights kind of reviewing all the notes that I'd made and made sure that I understand what's going on and I understand all the information and everything that was given to me or was given in the meeting, which I think to look back at it was quite positive, because I didn't kind of rest and thought, okay, like I'm going to learn this. I actually learned a lot faster. And so there is a positive point, a positive thing to have to kind of to look at when you are thinking, actually, I'm being judged by a lot of old men here. But yeah, I had to really kind of fight my way through, and I went through so much time of when I'd go on site, I was the only female on site, and I'd proper feel really daunted, and half of it was me myself as well. I'd feel really intimidated being the only female there. because there were so many men there, and it took me about a year of being on site every week to be comfortable being on site.
Yeah, I can sort of put myself in your shoes there, and I can imagine that. My first thought when you were mentioning about going into a room full of men, I could just imagine like a cartoon sketch when it happens and everyone's literally just looking around at you all at the same time, and they're probably thinking, what the fuck? It's probably what's going through their head, to be honest with you. And I like the fact, though, mentality is important, as you've pointed out, and the way that the way that you took that at the time was a case of, not overly panicking as such, but it's helped you to progress your knowledge probably even quicker, because you put that onus upon yourself to go and do that, and you've turned that into a positive, where I would imagine that quite a few people in a similar situation might turn that into a negative. So, kudos for that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to kind of turn that into a positive. And I think a lot of females do actually do that as well. They go over and above what they can do to prove that they're worthy of being there, and even kind of bettering them as well. So that's a really positive thing that has come out of it. It's just it's obviously going to take time to adjust that. And I'll tell you, I've got two interesting stories. I'll tell you them both. So the time that my brain changed on site was, then I was like, I'm actually worthy of being here. I was just doing my regular. So once a week, I'd go to this. It was a big construction site. If anybody knows Manchester, it was over in Oldham, and we were making headquarter offices for a big housing association. And I'd be there like every week to look at the progress of the building. So I'd kind of like just gear up and put my gear on, make sure I didn't really see anyone or speak to anyone or anything like that. And that day I was in the building, and I went towards the back of the building, and there were two young guys. They looked like they were 18 or something like that. And I was just, walking around and inspecting the site, and they were like, hey, and they were very like enthusiastic to talk to me. So I went over, and they were like, hi, are you the architect? And I was just, it kind of took me a minute myself to be like, yeah, I am, because I didn't have that level of confidence. And he was like, and then they had to ask again. They were like, are you the architect of this building? And I was just like, yes, I am. So I kind of forced myself to say, yes, I am. And they were, and I could just see the look on their face, and it was priceless, and it made me so much more confident than I am, and I actually thanked them for it. And they kind of looked at me in awe, and they were like, oh my God, I can't, like, that's so cool that you're an architect. And they said to me, and it was actually quite sad, they were like, oh, we've just messed around in school. So they were 18, both these two lads that I was talking to. And they were like, we just messed around in school and everything. So we never made it as an architect, or we can't make it as an architect. We're just here on a painting apprenticeship. And I was just like, I was kind of like, oh my God, that's like so sad that that you're saying that, and you didn't make an effort in school, but perhaps you didn't have the opportunities. But at the same time, it kind of made me realize that, oh my God, I've busted my butt to actually become an architect, and I should really be proud of it, and I should be really confident about it. And it actually took that moment for them to actually highlight to me that I've worked so hard that I should be really happy about this. So
nice. That's a good story.
Yeah, so that was really good, and I hope they've done really really good things in their lives. But yeah, it was a good moment for me. I was like, God, this hard work probably pays off then. Um, but then I kind of, so it was on the same site, where I built loads of confidence actually, and right at the end of this, when the building was finished. And I was walking around it. I was snagging, so I was walking around right at the end of the building project, and I was in the main corridors. Like ended up being a really cool building. It was like all glazed on one side. It had like commercial frontage and stuff like that, and it had these meeting rooms on one side and things like that. And I was just snagging the reception table wasn't perfect. To architects, nothing's perfect, and you can either always find about 1,001 snags on a project. So my apologies to any project manager. We're a bunch of perfectionists, but we do, we don't get upset about every snag, just the important ones. But yeah, so I was there snagging, and there was an elderly gentleman at the end of kind of the main downstairs corridor, and he was looking at me really curiously. And I was just kind of walking out. When you snag, you're just looking at stuff, right? And he was probably like, what the hell is this girl doing? Not this girl, like this child. Because he came up to me and he was like, are you all right, love? Are you lost? And this is it. I was just like, oh my God, you're just saying, are you all right, love? Are you lost? And I just lost it then. And I just turned around to him and I said, actually, I know every wire that runs through a building, every pipe work, every cylinder, every hot water, every column and beam that's the structure of this building, every brick that's been laid out outside of this building. I know exactly how it works. So no, I'm not lost, but you lost, love. Oh dear. So that was my moment of triumph, really.
What did he say to that?
He was shocked. He just was absolutely shocked and gobsmacked at it. And that this girl, that he's never seen a girl on site, has just told him off. I'm actually in tears. That's in a good way. That's hilarious. Yeah. So yeah,
priceless.
It took me a long time, but I did build the confidence to speak back, and it is mainly to people on site.
Again, I can well imagine, saying as you pointed out as well, with the fact that you're around 5 foot, so you're not exactly towering above people as well. I think there's some great stories there. Really, really good stories. That the fact that you got people looking up to you. So, oh my God, you're an architect. That's so cool. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah. And then on the flip side, you got someone who has almost judged you based on the fact that you did look a bit lost. I don't know. Obviously, you weren't. You know that you weren't. Yeah. So I'm not trying to defend the guy at all. It's almost like he'd formed a judgment. And certainly from again people that are not overly familiar. There's quite a big divide between north and south, and I have found that a lot of men to women will just say love in the north, and it's completely for the north of England. That's normal. Just like if you ever, if you're a guy and you're talking to an OAP, lady, they normally say duck in the north. It's like, it's a term of endearment. So that's interesting. I love the fact you stood up for yourself there, and you're like, I'm not, even if it wasn't intentional from their point of view, it's like, I'm not having this. I know what I'm doing. Pretty much F off. Yeah. Let me crack on, but being courteous about it at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's just important. I thought, like, at that moment, I was like, it's good for him not to judge anyone in any way. It doesn't matter who they are, male, female. It's not good for him to judge anyone like whether they should kind of be there or whether they're lost or anything, or if they're female. If he knew, like if he had kind of a gentleman of like middle years or something like that, going around the building, he would have never said, "Are you lost?" But he said to me in a cheeky form, "Are you lost?" And I had to respond back.
Yeah, I don't blame it. Don't just, lay down and take it. Just, fight fire with fire to an extent.
Yeah, which was interesting. I must say though, so I worked in Australia for a few years as well, and there's far more females on site there than there are here. I find here that we hardly have any females working on site here, but in Australia, there's a lot more. So I don't know if it's that they've got more kind of flexibility in in what they do, if they've taken their time to advocate it and kind of put it out there for females. But yeah, it's much better there, which is good, and hopefully England can catch up a little bit in that sense.
Fingers crossed. When you mean on site, do you mean generically, as in a bricklaying, electrician, gas engineer, that sort of stuff?
People are actually working on site, yeah. Labourers who work on site as well.
Nice. That's good to know. Again, that's very, very important. I don't know sort of how we do or don't do things in this country. To be fair, I'm probably above my pay grade to try and start thinking about it. In all fairness, I suppose maybe just before we start sort of wrapping up to an extent, are there any other sort of obstacles, any other key points during your time of being a successful business person, businesswoman, however you want to take that, and any other obstacles that you've overcome that you think can inspire others to take action?
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of just in terms of being female in property and female in kind of architecture and the world of construction, I think confidence goes a long way. So building your knowledge is really important, so you know what you're talking about, but also building your level of confidence. And as I kind of shared, it took me quite a long time to build that level of confidence in myself. And I think that's half of the battle is the battle within us, rather than the battle that's out there. I don't know, a certain percentage of the time, it's what we put out. So I think if we act really confident and kind of have that confident aura around us, it's the way we speak, the way we carry ourselves, the way we dress, I think that goes a long way to kind of that confidence building of being able to speak really well to people and everything like that. And I think that's what I've realized. The more confidence I've built in myself, kind of the more abilities and opportunities I've had, and I've got no issues now in kind of ever going anywhere on site or speaking to anyone or anything like that. And I think when I got into property, I think my something different that needed confident building was actually to be in front of a screen. So everything kind of, as the world moves on, we kind of have to move on with it, and to kind of have on-screen presence on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that is more important when you're in property and in the property world, especially when you are in business and you're looking for to grow your business. And I was very scared to appear on screen, and I'd kind of hide behind a kind of blanket of, oh, they won't listen to me anyway, there's lots of males out there and things like that. But actually more on social media, surprisingly, or I don't know, unsurprisingly, so many people like to hear from females rather than males, and especially probably in the property world, because they do hear from a lot of males already. So I get lots of really good feedback online and in the property world in terms of when I do speaking and things like that. It's really, really well received. So I think it's really lovely. And actually, it's a really nice thing in the property world. There's so many supportive communities in the property world, especially with females in property. There's really good support networks that everyone can kind of touch into and go into. I'm part of one called Property Sisters, which is really good. And there's Property Little Sisters as well, and there's a really strong community of females. It's not exclusive to females, should I say? So it does allow anyone to come in, but there's really good networks in property, and I feel very positively in terms of property and females in property.
Yeah, it's just to echo on that. I know, sort of getting involved in property, as I've joked about this before with people, is if you go to networking events, whether it's online or in person, whatever we are and aren't allowed to do, a lot of the time it's male dominated speaking. It's just carte blanche it. Most of the time, if you're talking to most men in property, it's, oh, look at the size of the deal I've just done, this is how big my balls are, I'm kicking ass, 10 million quid, blah, 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 up yours, I'm better than you. Yeah, all of that, sort of very ego-driven nonsense with stuff added on at the end. But whereas you speak to women in property, just nonchalantly having a conversation, it's like, how you doing? Yeah, I'm all right. What are you doing? Yeah, no, I'm just working on this like £3 or £4 million development in London. Everything's moving along nicely. Women seem to be a lot more calm about this sort of stuff, property-wise. I think that's refreshing. Maybe that's why, to have more, again, a different perspective and not necessarily, woohoo, here's my ego, look at me go, which is quite typical, male property stuff. Maybe that's probably why it's, the feedback is been incredibly positive. Plus, you're also a delightful person to speak to with so many great stories. That probably helps as well.
Thanks very much. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it is. It's really refreshing, and you can kind of you feel like you're having a really good conversation with females in property, like really supportive communities as well, rather than, like you say, not everyone's obviously egotistical or anything like that, but you get a more genuine conversation. For example, like right now, I've told you nothing about my property business and we've talked for about an hour.
It's nothing wrong with that at all. I suppose the purpose of having this mini series is to chat with different women in different aspects of business and how they found their experiences, good things that have happened, not so good things that have happened, and more just to inspire our generation, but also a new generation as well. And so anyone can if you put your mind to it, you can achieve it, no matter what race you are, what sex you are, what religion you're from. It's unless you live in North Korea, pretty much everyone's got the same opportunities. Sorry if anyone's listening in North Korea. Everyone's got the same opportunities. Pretty much, if you put your mind to it, you can go out and achieve it. And I suppose that's the key thing from this series and this episode as well. So I guess on that note, Mary, it's it's just awesome to hear your stories. Awesome for you to share your experiences about a multitude of things. If people wanted to get hold of you, how do people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm mainly on Instagram, so Elite Dwellings on Instagram, on Facebook as well, it's Elite Dwellings, or you can always just ping me an email at contact@elitedwellings.co.uk.
Awesome stuff. And as usual, we will put all of that in the show notes. So yeah, Mary, just again, a massive thank you for your time. That was really insightful, and reach out as well. And you're talking about feedback. If you enjoyed this episode and so forth, do share with others in your network as well. So awesome stuff. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Rob, for doing this. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much.